Today, I'd like to talk about an area of parenting that doesn't get enough attention. It turns out that by the time children get into elementary school, there's a significant difference between the performance of some children and other children in areas of academic literacy, by which I mean their reading, writing, and math skills. It turns out that parents who talk to their children more, who expose their children to more words, who will find that by the time the children get into kindergarten, those children already know more than other children whose parents don't do that. Likewise, parents who play math games with their children or just practice math with them will find that their children have better math skills than other children whose parents don't do that. And so there's a lot the parent can do to prepare the child for school, even before the child actually gets into school. It's even evident by the time a child is about 3 years old and they start preschool. So it turns out there's a lot parents can do to prepare their child. Now, today I have the pleasure of introducing you to somebody who has a great deal of experience in working with children. Mrs. Deborah Lao has more than 6 years of experience working as a preschool teacher with children in Brooklyn. She has more than 2 years working with adolescents in high school as a counselor, and she has also worked for some time in a facility for children who've been taken away from their parents. In addition to that, she's also worked as an adjunct teaching assistant at Hunter College, where she was working with college students. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology, and she has a master's degree in clinical psychology from Columbia University. She also has another master's degree in mental health from Pace University. And so I'd like to welcome Mrs. Deborah Lao to our conversation today. So welcome, Deborah.
Good afternoon, Dr. Lao.
So let's begin by talking about what parents can do. First of all, does a parent have to have training as a teacher to be able to help his or her child?
Not necessarily. A parent can always get in contact with their children's teachers, and they can always have a relationship, not just contacting teachers to talk about their children, but they can have a relationship, or they can even sit inside the classroom and observe their child and how the teacher respond to his or her child. And based on what the parent observed, the parent can adopt those same principles and apply it to their children.
There are things that parents can do to help their children even before they start school in terms of literacy skills?
Yes. When the child is born, there are so many different ways. You speak to the child in English, not speaking baby talk, because the child is basically absorbing everything that parents do or say. The child looks at the body language of parents. The child, a lot of times when a child grows up to be like 2 years old, they emulate the parents, whatever the parents say or do, the child does that. So parents, based on my experience, the first teacher that a child sees when he or she is born is the parent or / parents.
Are there ways that parents can also teach things like the letters of the alphabet and their names before the child goes to school?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. There are so many different learning objects that, or should I say learning, how should I say this? Tools that parents can utilize with respect to helping their kid, like the ABC. There are a lot of, while I was teaching at Flatbush Action, we sang the ABC to the students. And that way, they both in English and Spanish. And that way they were able to learn their ABCs very quickly. Parents can do the same thing by singing the ABCs to the kids. and also making sounds, making the letter sounds so that the child will be able to develop the skill to read later on.
Now, how do you respond to a parent who claims that their children will learn whatever they need to learn in school and the parent doesn't have to do anything at home? It's a teacher's job to teach the child, not the parents.
I do not believe in that ideology, and I've had experience where I had parents had that same ideology while I was a teacher in the past. And I try to explain to the parent that children, you can create your own geniuses. The children, I see children as genius, and you can create that if you want. And in order to create a genius, you have to reinforce that which the child learned in school. So when the child gets homework, it is so imperative that the parent first give the child some sense of autonomy so the child can do his or her homework on his or her own, but at the same time to visit the child after the homework is completed and find out from the child, tell me, how did you arrive by this answer? And if the child says, you know the answer, because sometimes they do, kids are very bright. Mm-hmm. You can also say, well, I want you to teach me. And so when the child begins to reiterate that which that child had learned in the classroom, it helps the child and it reinforces what the child learned in the classroom. And it enforces also the homework. The child has a better understanding, even explaining his or her homework to his or her parent.
Yeah, that sounds like an interesting strategy, to ask the child to teach you. Why would you use that strategy in particular?
Because I did that when I was a teacher, and I did that because I want to know if the child understood the concept of whatever it is that I taught in the classroom. And so if I said to the child, I would like you to teach me, about how many, for example, I would give you math, how many sides a triangle has, how many sides a rectangle has, and so on. I will ask the child to demonstrate to me the different size, the lengths, and so on. And then the child will start to explain to me. Children actually absorbed a lot. And parents, if they were to teach the child a dance or rap music, I'm sure that a lot of them surprised how the child learned the rap music so fast and the rap dance so fast. And it's just an indicator just to show parents that your child can learn, and they absorb the information, but they just need the guidance and they need the support. And as long as they get those, very, very cold ingredients, as long as they get that from their parents, you would be amazed to see how gifted, those children will be.
It seems like it depends a lot on how you approach the child. Are there any other techniques that parents might be able to use to get the child to enjoy learning something?
Yes, parents can, always read to their child. They can always read to their child, and they can always have that dialogue with the child, in that having that dialogue with the child with respect to be open to correction for the parent to show them different strategies that they can use when they're, adding or subtracting, because some students, they will add in their mind, and some students will add by, counting bricks,
Mhm.
and so they can use different objects with respect to counting. So if parents have that good relationship with his or her child, yes, parents can help their kid expressing to the child how they can work certain with a mathematical problem or comprehension, reading, whatever it is, science, bio, it doesn't really matter, but having that good relationship with the child and respecting the child. A lot of times parents may think that I'm the adult, I do not have to respect you, but you have to respect me. And so when parents respect a child and show the child that I respect you, the child will respect the parent, and the child will be more open to listen to the parent and to accept any kind of knowledge that the parents want to bestow upon that child. So yes, parents can teach their children, and the children would adhere to the teaching based on the relationship that they have with the kid. Because if their relationship is extremely, bad, it's not so good, it's very difficult for the child to listen to the parents. For example, if parents like label a child and said, "Oh, you're a dunce," that's just a word in my culture parents use, but to label a child. That means the child is not very bright. Well, that specific child would not want to open to the parents to teach him or her anything. Because then, if you're breaking down a child self-esteem, the child is going to feel inadequate, and the child is going to feel like, I don't know how to learn. I am not bright. So what is the use of learning? So can a parent like that get through to a child? The answer is no. It's almost impossible. But if the parent changes his or her behavior towards the child, it may make a difference with respect to if the child will be open to that parent teaching him or her.
Good point. I've known some parents who also complain they can't teach their children because they don't have money to buy all kinds of fancy tools to teach the child. Can parents use items from around the house to teach children things like math or other things?
Definitely, definitely they can. They can use straws,
Uh-huh.
they can have, like use like cotton balls.
Uh-huh.
Uh, they can use, there's I think they have it here in the United States. In my culture, they call it fudge, and they have fudge stick. I'm not sure what you guys,
Well,
you guys.
ice cream sticks.
Right. Okay. And so
Mhm.
what happened is that when parents purchased those snacks for kids, they would save those little sticks and they use it to make shapes. They
Mhm.
can use it to count with and subtract with and, add.
Mhm.
So there's so numerous things that parents can use around the house. You do not have to have expensive objects to use, learning tools to purchase or anything like that. You can find things around the house.
Another strategy that comes to mind that I've seen you use is to make a game out of the learning. So if you
Mhm.
can make the learning fun in some way that the child will enjoy, then they'll want to learn.
Exactly. That is so true. And not in addition to that, right? If you have something like in the classroom or in one's home where you have like nice little beautiful stars,
Mhm.
you know, and if the child did his or her homework, you can have those little stars up, on the piece of paper that shows on Monday, John did all of his homework, so he gets a star on Tuesday, and you keep on doing that. And not only just giving stars, it could be anything. Um, you can also reinforce um, make some sort of reinforcement in terms of letting the child knows that they did a great job. It
Good
is
point.
so important to let the child knows he or she does a great job, because it boosts self-esteem
Good
and
point.
it also boosts confidence. and the child wants to learn even more so.
I've also seen parents make games of things. For example, I remember when I would ride the subway with my son, I would find a word in the advertisements and I'd say, can you find such and such a word? And he would look for it and eventually he would find it. And then he'd say, okay, I have a word for you, Daddy. And he would have me look for that word. So we'd take turns finding words for each other. And so that was a kind of game that we'd play on the subways where he would just practice his vocabulary.
Yes.
Also, there are a lot of other games that parents can buy for their children or play with their children. For example, Scrabble is a word game that children can enjoy making words with. Right? And so they can, at the same time, they're playing the game, they're practicing spelling. Right? And that can be very, plus they're learning strategy, so that can be very helpful. Or maybe playing chess. Right? When children play chess, even though it's a game, they learn things like planning and foresight, and they learn circumspection, a lot of important mental skills that are not often taught directly. Or there are other games like maybe Monopoly.
Yes,
Where
that's a good
children
one.
can play Monopoly. A lot of them enjoy that. And when they play Monopoly, they're adding numbers and subtracting numbers and things like that. Or there's another game called Shoots and Ladders, where they'll practice rolling a dice and they have to add the numbers together. And there's some research actually showing that playing that game helps children with their math skills. And so it seems like a lot of the games that are out on the market that might not be that expensive can be purchased, and if parents just invest the time to play with their children, then that time playing can lead to important advances in the child's academic skills, even though that might not be the focus of the game.
Yes, that is true. What you said, Dr. Lau, about different ways that parents can help their children, whether it is through game playing or whether it's just having a conversation, like when they're cooking, for example, they can tell the parents can ask the child, you know, if they, say for example, they're measuring a cup of rice, or they're to cook, or they're baking, and they will ask the child how many eggs, or and just in terms of measurement. And there's so many different ways, whether through cooking or through even playing. They can create their own song using words, problems, or whether add or subtract or divide, or they can even sing, rap. A lot of times some kids learn faster through rapping.
Mhm.
And so parents, you do not have to be a great singer or anything like that, but you can rap a song, but it has something that has to do with math, or you rap something, maybe a poem. And then in terms of comprehension, you try to find out from the child, what is the message, and if they have anything to add to it. And it's so interesting how they're so versatile. It's just amazing how the way they think, and if parents or teachers or any adults, any mentor, anyone that child comes in contact with can help the growth process in terms of academia, I can assure you that child will be going to college, and who knows, Dr. Lau will become a doctor just like you. But but reinforcement and using every opportunity to teach a child. You do not have to sit around, a table and teaching a child. It's so many different ways. You can be going to the store. Sometimes parents may think, I do not have the time because I work so hard. My husband works so hard, or I'm a single parent, or something to that effect. But instead of the child playing with a toy or a doll or something to that effect, what that parent can do is to ask a child questions like 10 plus 12 equal to how much? Or if you divide 10 divided by 2, what is that? So just simple addition or subtraction or whatever when they're traveling with the child, it makes a difference. It really, really makes a difference.
That suggests something else. That we've already talked about how maybe playing with the child is a secret weapon that you can use to get the child interested in learning when the child doesn't even know they're learning.
So what really happens is that when the child is in the with the parent slash parents, what happened is that when you make it so casual, then the child learn freely, and all that information just goes straight into the long-term memory. And then when the child wants to retrieve that information, sometimes the child just have to think about, where did I learn that from? Oh, I was on the bus with mom. And so the child makes connection.
I want to come back to something we touched on a moment ago because I think it really is important. And that's just the idea of giving your child attention, talking with your child, even not always just trying to teach them, but just having conversations. But it seems like when you do that, first of all, the children do usually like talking with their parents, especially if there's no stress involved, especially if you're having a positive attitude and you're enjoying the child, and then they enjoy you. But the other thing there that is often overlooked is that the child learns vocabulary through the conversation with the parents. So that even if you're just having a conversation, it seems like you're not teaching anything, but the reality is that the child's learning words from you. The child's learning how to pronounce words, how to, sequence words in a sentence, and how to use, their body language and things like that. So something as simple as having a conversation with a child can actually be a learning experience for the child.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you with that. Anything to make academia fun, it's becomes easy for the child,
Good point.
and the child is able to apply what he or she learned. Anything that's it. So when parents have that conversation with one's child, you find that it's very, very, very good when you're talking with your child,
Yes, not
not
accurate.
not
Right.
or to your child. Because when you're talking to your child, is what I say, do what I say, that kind of
Uh,
attitude, but not what I do, what I say. But when you're talking with a child, now you have that dialogue. And so and also what I think this is very, very important. Like if the parent does, I think I said that before, but I just want to reiterate it again. If the parent says something that is incorrect, it's so important for the parents to, even if they made a mistake in math or had made a mistake in the reading comprehension, doesn't really matter. If the parent says something that is incorrect, always say to the child, yes, I was wrong, it was incorrect. And because then you're teaching the child something there. It's very valuable. Because when the child is in the classroom, the child understand that if I did something, work out a math problem and it's incorrect, I do not have to keep quiet because there's nothing to be ashamed of, but I
mm,
can talk to the teacher and the teacher can give me the right correction.
mhm.
I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I have had that situation in a classroom, with parents and teachers, and I always encourage parents to, while having that dialogue with the child, if something is missing based on the parent part, just make it known and be honest, because we are all teachers. A lot of time parents don't realize that they're teachers, but they are the first teacher the kid or kids see when they can come into this world.
That's a good point. In my book, I talk about epistemic integrity. And what I
Mhm.
mean by that is that you have to be honest with yourself and the people around you in terms of what's true and what's not true.
Mhm.
Right? And if you have a child who sees you say something that's wrong and calls you out on it, then a parent who has that kind of honesty will admit that they made a mistake. And the child then can learn, everybody makes mistakes, everybody's imperfect. And yes, I'm going to make mistakes too. And if mom or daddy can admit they made a mistake, then I can too. Right? So
Mhm.
they lose some of that fear of making a mistake. And they also see that sometimes they can know more than their parents and even help their parents, right?
Yes.
And that kind of bolsters their confidence as well and their
Ye-
self-esteem.
Yes, it's so important for parents to boost their child's self-esteem. is so important because it's a gateway of achieving great things.
There's actually research I was reading about today showing that children who believe that they can improve are more likely to improve than children who don't.
The way based on my experience in the past, parents can either create geniuses or they can create something else. And what do you prefer? Do you prefer to create geniuses? And I think that, this is very important for parents to understand that how your child comes out in life, it depends on, in part, because the child, is not just seeing the parent alone or parents, but in part, how the child comes out in life academically, it most times depends on how the parents interact with a child, and especially with their education.
Yeah, good point. One of the reasons I'm doing the show is because I genuinely believe that parents exert the strongest of all social influences on their children.
That is so true. I remembered when I was a counselor, and I recall this parent said, I did everything for my child, and my child did not come out the way I wanted my child to come out. And it goes right back to preschoolers. It depends on how much you invest in a child, and time is very important. It's very important to spend time with the kid. There's no gift that is, how should I say this? There's no gift that I can look at that there's a word in my head when it's not coming out. There's no other gift than the gift of spending time with your child, because when you spend time with a child, the child has some sense of connection, and when a child is connected to you, the child will be honest about what he or she is feeling, and if they're feeling inadequate in terms of academia, they will come to you because they trust you. And they know that you will not reprimand them, but they know that you will treat them with love, and you will show them patience, and you will try to help them, and it does make a difference. So later on in life, you do not have to worry about, I gave my child everything, and this is the outcome, and an outcome that you don't really like.
Right. One thing that we do know is that children flourish a lot more when they're surrounded by love and patience than when they're surrounded by harsh criticism.
Yes.
So I wish we had more time, but the time has gone so fast that it's really amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. I'm hoping that everybody watching this program today has gotten something of benefit out of it. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lao. Good night.
Bye.